60 days. That's how long it took for Marcus Webb, 32, a personal trainer in Charlotte, North Carolina, with no history of kidney disease, no hypertension, no diabetes, no documented risk factors, to go from a man lifting weights 6 days a week to a patient connected to a dialysis machine 3 times a week. 60 days. The length of a training cycle, the length of a 2-month gym membership, the time most people take to assess whether a supplement is working. And what started this collapse was inside the shaker Marcus drank every morning for 2 years. The same shaker he recommended to clients. The same product with a picture of an athlete on the packaging and the words high performance in capital letters on the front. Nobody read what was on the back. The whey protein wasn't poisoning Marcus. Not directly. The problem was what came with it and what nobody effectively regulates: creatine in doses above the renal threshold. Bioaccumulative heavy metals, lead, cadmium, arsenic, are present in concentrations documented by the Clean Label Project in 53% of the best-selling protein products in the United States, and one specific compound that no supplement label is required to declare in quantity: oxalate. Oxalate, a microscopic crystal that the body naturally produces as a metabolic byproduct and normally eliminates through urine. But in high concentrations, the concentrations reached when you consume plant-based protein powder, especially pea and spinach protein, in doses of 30 to 50 grams per day for months. These crystals accumulate in the renal tubules with the same logic as a quarry working inside a copper pipe. They don't show up in standard blood tests. They don't cause symptoms until the damage is already extensive, and the doctor who evaluates a healthy 32-year-old personal trainer with slightly elevated creatinine doesn't immediately think of protein supplements as the cause. He thinks of dehydration. He thinks of intense physical exertion. He thinks of waiting for another test. Marcus waited 3 months. What independent laboratory analyses from the Clean Label Project, published in 2018 and updated in 2023, revealed about what's inside the most consumed protein supplements in the United States will permanently change how you look at the supplement shelf. But the mechanism by which oxalate destroys kidney tissue, and why no primary care physician is trained to connect protein supplementation to oxalate nephropathy, is the detail that is costing kidneys to healthy people who would never imagine they were at risk. In September 2021, Marcus went to his general practitioner with persistent fatigue for 3 weeks, visible foamy urine, and bilateral lower back pain that he had attributed to overtraining. The doctor ordered routine tests. Creatinine, 2.1, slightly elevated, not alarming in isolation. Proteinuria of 2+ on urinalysis. The doctor looked at Marcus, 32 years old, athletic, normal blood pressure, no family history of kidney disease, and made the decision any reasonable clinician would make. Increased hydration. Temporary reduction in training. Repeat tests in 30 days. There was a second option in that office. An option that would require the doctor to ask something that isn't in any standard renal evaluation protocol. What exactly you're supplementing, at what dose, and from which protein source specifically. The doctor didn't ask. Marcus didn't mention it. The shaker continued to be consumed every morning. 30 days later, creatinine, 3.8 meters dl, emergency renal biopsy. Result, oxalate nephropathy with massive deposition of calcium oxalate crystals in the bilateral renal parenchyma, a pattern of destruction that the North Carolina nephrologist, Dr. Stephen Weiss, would describe in the clinical report with a phrase that Marcus remembered: extent of damage inconsistent with complete reversal of function. Marcus was 32 years old. His kidneys had the functional capacity of a 70-year-old man. To understand how a product sold in any American pharmacy, consumed by 53 million people in the United States, can destroy the kidneys of healthy adults without any federal agency issuing a clinical alert, it is necessary to understand a regulatory distinction that the supplement industry has meticulously constructed over decades. Dietary supplements in the United States are not regulated like drugs. They are regulated like food, meaning that the manufacturer does not need to prove that the product is safe or effective before placing it on the market. The FDA can only act after harm is documented, reported, and attributed to the product with sufficient evidence for regulatory action. The burden of proof is reversed. It is not the manufacturer who needs to prove that the product is safe. It is the agency that needs to prove that it caused harm. The Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, passed with intense lobbying from the supplement industry, created this framework, and it remains fundamentally unchanged in 2024. The result is a $50 billion annual market in the United States with quality control that ranges from rigorous to non-existent depending on the manufacturer, and the consumer has no way of distinguishing one from the other by the label. In 2018, the Clean Label Project tested 134 popular protein products from 52 different brands and found that 70% contained detectable lead, 74% contained BPA, an endocrine disruptor, and that plant-based protein products, especially pea and rice protein, had consistently higher concentrations of heavy metals than whey protein products. 1/3 of the products tested exceeded the safety limits set by California Proposition 65 for lead and cadmium in daily exposure. None of these products were removed from the market as a result of the report. No recalls were issued. No regulatory updates were implemented. The report was published. The industry contested the methodology. The products remained on the shelves. Oxalate is an organic anion produced by human metabolism and absorbed from food sources, especially spinach, beets, chocolate, nuts, and, in relevant concentrations, certain powdered vegetable proteins. Under normal conditions, oxalate is filtered by the kidneys and eliminated in the urine without consequence. The problem begins when the oxalate load exceeds the renal elimination capacity, either due to excessive intake, alteration in the intestinal microbiota that normally degrades oxalate before absorption, or a combination of both. At this point, oxalate combines with free calcium in the blood and forms calcium oxalate crystals, solid, angular structures that preferentially deposit in renal tissue. The sequence of destruction documented in biopsies of oxalate nephropathy is as follows. The crystals are deposited in the renal tubules, the microscopic channels through which the kidney filters and processes the fluid that will become urine. The presence of the crystals triggers a local inflammatory response. Macrophages attempt to phagocytize the crystals, but are unable to dissolve them. Chronic inflammation around crystal deposits produces tubular fibrosis, permanent scarring in kidney tissue. Progressive fibrosis reduces the functional filtration area of the kidney. Creatinine rises. Proteinuria appears. The kidney is being replaced by scar tissue millimeter by millimeter, crystal by crystal, without significant pain and without clinical warning signs until functional loss is already extensive. Dr. John Knight, a nephrology researcher at the University of Alabama at Birmingham and one of the world's leading experts on oxalate metabolism, published data in 2022 in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology that changed how the nephrology community thinks about protein supplementation. In an analysis of 30 plant-based protein powder products, the best-selling brands in the United States, Knight and his team identified that the oxalate content per serving ranged from 10 mg to 1,238 mg. The daily limit of oxalate considered safe for individuals without a history of nephrolithiasis is 40 to 50 mg total in the diet. A single scoop of certain plant-based protein products delivered 24 times the safe daily limit of oxalate in a single meal. And Marcus had been consuming 2 scoops a day of pea and spinach protein for 2 years. Dr. Stephen Weiss wasn't a supplement specialist. He was a nephrologist with 21 years of experience at Atrium Health in Charlotte. He had treated oxalate nephropathy before in patients with primary hyperoxaluria, a rare genetic condition, and in post-bariatric surgery patients, where partial intestinal removal increases oxalate absorption. What he hadn't seen before was oxalate nephropathy in a young, healthy adult with no surgical history and no documented genetic condition. When Marcus's biopsy came back with a pattern of massive crystal deposition, Weiss asked the question the general practitioner hadn't asked. Describe to me in detail what you eat and what you supplement. Every product. Every dose. Every frequency. Marcus listed. Weiss calculated. Marcus's daily oxalate load from supplementation was approximately 2,400 milligrams per day, 48 times the safe limit, consistently delivered for 24 months directly to the renal system of a man whose previous annual tests had always returned within the normal range. Weiss published the case in 2022 in the New England Journal of Medicine as a clinical letter. He was careful with his language, suggestive association, consistent temporal relationship, need for prospective studies. But in interviews he gave after publication, outside the formal academic record, he was more direct. We're seeing this more often. And we're diagnosing it late because nobody thinks to ask about supplementation as a cause of kidney failure in a young, healthy patient. Oxalate is the most documented mechanism, but it's not the only one. The Clean Label Project identified in 2018 that pea protein, the base ingredient in most of the best-selling vegan and plant-based protein supplements in the United States, has consistently high cadmium concentrations because the pea plant is a hyperaccumulator of cadmium from the soil. Cadmium is a nephrotoxic heavy metal. The kidney is the primary target organ of chronic cadmium toxicity, which produces progressive and irreversible tubular dysfunction upon chronic exposure even at subclinical doses. The daily cadmium exposure considered safe by the International Agency for Research on Cancer is 0.83 micrograms per kilogram of body weight. Some pea protein products tested by the Clean Label Project delivered cadmium doses between 1.5 and 2.8 micrograms per serving. In an 80-kilogram user consuming 2 servings daily, exposure reached 5.6 micrograms per day, almost 7 times the safe limit, delivered with the regularity of a prescribed medication and with zero traceability in the health system. Because supplements are not medicines, they don't have mandatory batch numbers in pharmacovigilance systems. They don't have consumer records. When damage appears in the examination, the connection with the product has to be reconstructed by the patient's memory and the doctor's diagnostic intuition. Marcus remembered every workout from the last 2 years. He didn't know the batch number of the product he had bought in February 2020. Marcus wasn't being reckless. He was being methodical. He researched the product before buying. He read reviews. He checked the amino acid profile. He chose a plant-based formula because he had read that plant protein is healthier for the kidneys than high amounts of animal protein. This information is scientifically correct for the general population. For oxalate, it's the exact opposite. Plant protein powder, especially from legumes and leafy green vegetables, delivers loads of oxalate that whey protein doesn't. Marcus made the healthiest choice available with the information on the label, and that choice was the mechanism of destruction. The instinct to take care of his health, to eat cleaner, to choose plant-based over whey, to supplement with consistency and discipline, that instinct built, portion by portion, over 24 months, an oxalate load equivalent to 48 times the safe daily limit deposited in the tubules of 2 kidneys that had never given him a problem. The healthy choice was the weapon, discipline was the delivery mechanism, and the label that was supposed to protect Marcus didn't contain the only information he needed, the oxalate content per serving. Because no American regulation requires that number to appear on dietary supplements. What the American supplement industry learned from Marcus Webb, from Dr. Knight's studies, from the Clean Label Project report, and from the dozens of similar cases that appear in nephrological literature with increasing frequency is this. There is a problem with oxalate and heavy metals in plant-based protein powders that is scientifically documented, clinically relevant, and commercially inconvenient. The market's response was to produce low oxalate and heavy metal tested versions of some products priced 40% higher and without regulatory obligation to prove the claims on the label. What Marcus never recovered was full kidney function. 2 years after his diagnosis, he operates with 41% of his original kidney function. He is on the kidney transplant list. He can no longer train with the intensity that was his profession and his identity. He no longer recommends supplements to clients not because it's the law, but because it was personal. The shaker is still on the shelf at the gym where he worked for 8 years. Someone bought the same product last week, and the label still doesn't mention oxalate. The label promised performance. It delivered dialysis. The difference between protein supplementation that builds muscle and protein supplementation that destroys kidneys is not the amount of protein. It's the source, the undeclared composition, and the duration of cumulative exposure. First, if you use plant-based protein powder, especially pea, rice, hemp protein, or any plant-based blend, research the oxalate content of the specific product you use. It's not on the label, but some manufacturers make it available in third-party reports. The reference limit is 50 milligrams of total oxalate per day in the complete diet. If the product does not provide this information, treat it as an unquantified risk. Second, look for products with certification from independent third parties, NSF International, Informed Sport, USP verified. This certification does not guarantee the absence of oxalate, but it guarantees that what is on the label is in the product and that heavy metals have been tested. It is the minimum traceability available in a market that does not demand the rest. Third, and most urgent, if you have a history of kidney stones, chronic kidney disease, or have been using plant-based protein powder for more than 6 months at a dose exceeding 30 grams daily, ask your doctor for a complete renal panel with 24-hour urinary oxalate. This test measures the actual oxalate load your kidneys are eliminating. It's not part of routine checkups. You need to explicitly request it. Marcus Webb went to the doctor with symptoms. Standard tests took 3 months to reveal what urinary oxalate would have shown from the start. You don't need to wait for symptoms. The test exists. The question is whether anyone will tell you that you need to do it before the damage is already irreversible. A protein powder isn't the only supplement the American market sells without proper regulation that is causing documented organ damage in healthy adults. In the next video, pre-workouts with concentrations of caffeine and stimulants that the FDA has already linked to cardiac arrest in young athletes without prior heart disease, and the reason why they continue to be sold freely after each documented death.